Hello there, and welcome to a new build guide for Age of Wonders 4. And since I've had the last time so much fun with a lightning build, I came up with a fire build this time. And while pondering, I spotted that the dark culture has a seat open in this department. I didn't want to go for high culture or mystic culture again because I did fire builds for these already aplenty. But this one is a nice thing. It works and revolves a lot around the Dark Culture's key trait, so we're going to dive right into the body and cultural traits with this. So, I went for Hideous Stench because it makes our frontliners a lot more valuable for us. We're aiming to do a lot of fire damage, and it happens that people burn better when they're stinched. I don't know. It is just a good softening towards magical resistance, and that just helps us out a ton. I also went into Arcane Focus because I wanted to have hard-hitting battle mages and supporters. You could interchange that. I'm not convinced that this is the best trait, but it does help out the fact that we don't have too much bonus damage on our battle mages for quite some time, and I found it to be working extremely well on that end. Alright, cultural traits. I want to speak about Call the Weak here for a second. This is the trait that made it stand out to be very interesting to play it as a fire build, because we have a lot of battle mages that all can apply weakened to the enemy, and our frontliners utilize that weakness with heightened damage and self-healing capabilities. This one is really useful because that means our battle mages always have some extra value by weakening the enemy, no matter what, which is really amazing. Alright, trait-wise, I went here in for mana channelers to have cheaper access to elementals. It's my personal favorite version of the build, but I can see this work with a different trait there, because you could easily change the fire elementals with the pyromancies and it would still work a charm. So feel free to change that. This one is really cool if you want to spam a lot of fire elementals because of very obvious reasons, I think. Ritual Cannibals is the center point that I didn't want to change out no matter what on this build. Mainly because it gives you free mana and free soft support for your troops. Both of these things are extremely valuable for this build and for the dark culture in particular. So yeah, that's that. Let's talk tomes. Obviously, if we go into a fire build, we are starting out with pyromancy because, obvious reasons. We gain Searing Blades, which make our frontliners hit really hard if the enemy is burning, and Fiery Arrows makes sure that our tier 1 archers can make the enemy burn quite from the start. This is really a cool combo, which makes a nice synergy between your archers and your shock troopers. Really good stuff. We also gain access to Ignite and Immolate, which are among the best battlefield nuke spells. It's either a good single target damage or a really sick AoE damage if the enemies are burning, or an okay-ish if not. But seriously, if the enemy is burning, that's a whole 25 on a 1 hex radius. And we can, like I said, make the enemy burn quite easily. We also gain Magma Spirits Pyromancies. So here you kind of should decide whether you want to go for the Magma Spirits, which eventually evolve into tier 3 battle mages with a nice nuke and face, or the Pyromancers, which can't teleport, like the tier 3 elementals eventually can, but they come with their nuke available right from the get-go. It's up to you. Pyromancers are easier available, but more gold intense, whereas Magma Spirits are less gold intense, but more time intense. Alright, the other tier 1 that I picked up is Faith. It's a necessary thing. We need something to heal our troops. You could actually change this tome with any other tome that brings you access to sufficient healing capabilities, be it evolution, or I don't know if roots would have enough healing. I would highly doubt it. But Faith brings us also a lot of other good instruments. We have, of course, the Chaplain, which is a good single target healer. Once you have Staves of Mending available, they also have a nice touch heal available. So altogether, really good healing capabilities and a single target damage amplifier, which is just I love it. We also have the Abbey in Province improvement, which gives us knowledge for farms, which is pretty good excuse to spam some farms for knowledge gain, and they also come off really cheap. We also gain convents, which make us yeah, it is only working in certain cities because the dark culture isn't good at maintaining high city stability levels. So this is sort of a false friend most of the time. Sometimes, though, if you have a good province distribution, it can actually work. And of course, Faithful Whispers. If you want, you can also play this build as a variant where you start out with Faith, but it would cut off your early game by a lot. So I wouldn't advise it, but if you would want, you could play around Faithful Whispers to get access to the free cities way earlier. Just a thought, not the best one probably. Wrath of the Faithful is a spell you can easily skip because we have more fire things in mind, as well as army heal. Tier 2 comes, and we're picking up Artificing here as a very strong supplement for this build. First up, our frontline becomes so much more deadly with this Artisan armaments. 30% more critical hit chance do weigh a lot. Siege magic also makes all of our backliners, the mages at least, a lot more viable, especially that Siege Breaker thing, and on top of the 10% more damage is really a nice roundup. And Iron Golems, we finally have some real frontliners. This is for the Dark Culture also very important because we are consisting out of paper until this tome, which really gives me a good feeling. Also Golem Mines, because, you know, it's always nice to have some extra mines. Mayhem is the other tier 2 to pick up because it brings us access to misfortune marks. This is something for your archers and your battle mages, which is really cool, and misfortune is, well, it's just outright amazing. It altogether amplifies your soft disruption from your backline. You know, you're weakening the enemy, you're cursing the enemy with misfortune. Altogether, it softens up the enemy's potential to deal damage to you, which is just a really good combination. All right, from the tier 3 point on, we have the option to go straight up all into chaos, which is my personal recommendation because it really fits the build very well. Devastation. Flame burst weapons makes our frontliners crit even more often. We are here at a 50% critical hit chance bonus, and a nice explosion if they manage to finish somebody off. Really good stuff. Focus of Devastation is interesting insofar as it makes it nigh impossible to maintain defense modes against the troops. It's really cool. It doesn't come with a damage bonus though, which is kind of sad, especially since we picked up the Demolisher trait already via Artificing Tome. This is a little bit of a letdown, but seriously, the ability to punch people out of defense modes is pretty sick. Don't underestimate it. It really amplifies your damage potential by a ton, especially since you're basically leaking battle mages left and right. War Breeds give us a tier 4 shock unit, which is pretty nice. I mean, we already have good access to shock units, so here we have now tier 3 and tier 4 shock units available, which are just really cool. We can transform throwaway units into War Breeds for turn with Monstrous Rebirth. I love Monstrous Rebirth for 2 reasons. First up, it lets you dispose these leftovers from your early game somehow useful, and it's also coming off dirt cheap. Come on, look at these. For a tier 3 spell with this impact, it is really cheap. Now, Devastated Spheres come off with a whopping 8 fortification damage, and by this point, you're really good at busting cities, which is really cool for Dark Culture. The other tier 3 here is Pandemonium. We are, like I said, we have a lot of battle mages, and Havoc Magic, therefore, is, wow, it's just crazy. I love it. Also, we gain Vessels of Chaos, which makes all of our troops really get more damage out of all that chaos we're spreading naturally. It's really cool because weakness and burning are 2 statuses we have always available, so that's a pretty good thing. And the rest is just easy pickings. You get those extra 10% from anywhere. Chaos Eaters make really cool frontline battle mages, and since we picked our traits as we did, we also can summon them really cheap. I love this. We also have Infectious Insanity, which is an amazing spell to cripple entire regiments, because the person you are infecting has a baseline chance to inflict insanity to somebody else, and there's also a chance that they get inflicted by infectious insanity again, which means there is a chance of a chain gun procession. It's a wonderful spell, but it's so flippin' costly. That's a real downside. But when we hit tier 4, pick up Calamity if you have it available. I don't really need to explain much about it because it's one of the most overloaded tomes, and while we are talking, we have a curse of projectiles which attach to your archers and your battle mages. We have something for frontliners, we have something to cripple the enemy with, and we even get a flashy tier 5 unit to show off for our frontline. This has everything you could ask for, and on top of that, you also get the Accursed Shrine, which gives you more troops. If you don't have this tome, there is no shame in dipping entirely into Demon Gate and Chaos Channeling. It's a wonderful combination as well, especially since Demon Gate allows you to transform yourself into Demon Kin, which is a bonkers racial transformation. It's really, really cool. And if you have Calamity available, though, I would recommend going Chaos Channeling as the intended build path, because Infernal Focus is so good for your backliners. It is just so good. We also gain Scion of Flame, which is also a really, really nice one. We gain now Fire Revenge. We can ignore Burning for ourselves, and we have a nice fire resistance. On top of that, we can summon Magma Spirits naturally, and we even gain access to the capability to explode our own troops. This is really, really nasty. I mean, the higher the tier of the sacrifice, the higher the impact, mind you. And yeah, Fan the Inferno is an interesting spell so far as it's battlefield wide. It's also flippin' costly, but yeah, whatever. So at this point, we only wait for the Chaos Lord tome to I don't know. It is not so much of a good fit for this build. Sadly, I feel like tier 5 tomes often are a little bit of a letdown. You could flip in whatever you want at this point as an addition if it doesn't please you too well. Alright, let's move over to our cultural roster, which is, for this build, quite an amazing thing. We have no useless troops. Dark Warriors remain useful through all stages of the game because they are a very, very efficient throwaway unit. Yeah, they die. Yeah, they die really, really quickly, but they also can deal a lot of damage while they do so. And they can be recruited damn cheaply, so you can use these to just break sieges or split up things. Don't mind if you bleed a few. It's really cool about them. Pursuers are only archers in this build, which end up pretty heavily enchanted once this build is reaching peak performance, but sadly they remain tier 1 units with no armor, no resistance, so yeah, they are cool because you can get a pretty cool, strong setup out of these for very, very low gold. But yeah, they melt like ice in the sunshine, and be very careful relying too much on these. But here you have a super cheap printable early and mid-game available swarm potential that never grows out of style because of its sick damage potential. Tier 2, though, we gain access to the more robust parts of our build, namely the Night Guard, which is my personal bread and butter frontliner for this build. This nice gentleman comes with good resistances, has 2 revenge attacks, has a decent damage, has a polearm, sunders enemies' defenses while just standing in front of them, which is a nice complement to the hideous stench, and altogether, this is your mass-producible frontliner if you can afford it and you have the time for it. Warlocks are your run-of-the-mill backliner, and I personally prefer them over the Pyromancers out of the simple reason that Sundering Curse is such a powerful single-target softener. We are good at burning down simple stuff, but when it comes down to the higher tier units, this helps so much. Flip down 2 of these on a tier 4 or 5 unit of the enemy on a very high ranking hero and watch them die. It is just that good. This is the reason why I really don't recommend the Pyromancers too much, because yeah, it is cool to have the Flame Strike available, and if the enemy masses up a lot of low tier units and is a very swarmy opponent, this is way to go and way better than the Warlock. But if the enemy relies on high quality units, the warlocks shine. So it's really up to you. But I personally fill in the nuke gap with the high tier fire elementals. Chaplains. Very important troops. Have at least 3 to 5, well, 3 to 4, depends on your playstyle, really, on your rosters, because you just can't heal up so much with these. They also come with a sort of decent range attack, but yeah, healers heal. I mean, there's really not that much to explain about it. And on the higher tiers, we gain the Dark Knight, which is basically a souped up version of War Tier 1. Comes with a horse, comes also with a 2 hexcone burst spell that is doubly strong when the enemy is afflicted with negative status effects, but this is kind of ordeal. So these guys are basically just the better version of the tier 1 guys, but also so much more costly, and it hurts so much more when they die, that I personally felt like Dark Warriors always had a lot of purpose in this build at all stages. Now, Iron Golems, on the other hand, are the supplement to your spears. These are, I think, 1 to 2, maybe 3, depending on the mileage that and the enemies that you're facing, are totally enough for any army. I personally think this build shines with more Night Guards than Iron Golems, but these guys can stand in the backline and give you a really sick defensive aura, which helps your build so much. They can also fight, but in all honesty, prefer them to have them standing behind my spears and bolstering up their defenses to make them really, really hard to kill. They can also peel for your backline and are altogether really, really wonderful complements. So, this is your spammable fire elemental troop. This is what I personally prefer to have over the Pyros, because they do a very similar job without the AoE nuke, but they also are not weighing down my purse, which is really good, which is the main thing about them. It's up to the situation and your personal playstyle at that point. Right on. Imperium skill-wise, we are an odd bird. We are swimming mostly in the Chaos branch, which means we have access to faster leveling tier 1 units, which is wonderful for your fire elementals. We also gain access to milk the rewards of battle really, really nicely. This is one path that you can go if you have lots of stuff that you can grind down, or you can also focus down the dark path, because we're just dark. We can go for these skills. Up to Shadow Binding is really everything here useful, and if you get that far in the run, Court of Whispers is really nice, although it takes a really, really long time until you get there. We are dwelling mostly in the Chaos department, and this is why this build is very good at being swarmy. We also have an interesting side branch, though, into the Order affinity, which also means that you can crank out a lot of Whispering Stones out of this build eventually, making All-Seeing a really, really nice investment. Altogether, knowledge output is very, very achievable because you have access to those abbeys. This run went really, really nuts because I had too much war around me, but if you focus down the abbeys quite decently, you have a really, really nice advantage in the knowledge game. Like I said, convents don't work for all of the cities because the city stability of the dark culture tends sometimes to be a little bit negative, but if you have a positive income, use them. They are yet another really nice add-on to your capabilities. Altogether, this build thrives also a lot on wars, because you want that knowledge extraction thing going, and all of the other parts of your build revolve around killing a lot of stuff. So once you have cleared out your environment, you really need more stuff to kill. So that's yet another point. And last but not least, this build is really mana hungry, because, well, if you play the elemental path, that is. But even if not, you can utilize so much mana by just spamming out all these fire spells that you have. Also, shout out to Baneful Curse being a really, really nasty supplement for this build because it's a 1 hex radius softener, which is really good if the enemy tends to have high defenses. You get a lot of mileage out of that because you can easily spam that turn by turn due to its very, very low cost. Brand of Wrath is extremely important for this build, because without it, your elementals won't have the Call the Weak ability, which would be really, really bad for you. You don't want that to happen. Apart from that, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Crank out your abilities, crank out as many units as you can possibly afford, and stay ahead in the research game. It's pretty much how you build most of these builds. Hero-wise, I went for a Mortal Champion. I went there because I personally feel like Command is one of the most powerful abilities for many reasons, because it amplifies your early game tremendously. Either the free variant in combination with the Ritualist, I love that because it allows you to reactivate a troop and then go for your supporty spells, or you sacrifice your entire action and go for coordinated command. Class-wise, I highly recommend the Ritualist because we are really hinging on that chap lane alone, and every single Ritualist hero we can pucker up for this build is an amazing asset. The combination of Restore, Wild Growth, and rejuvenating Wild Growth into Swift Wild Growth is just godlike. Eventually, consider picking up Regenerating Support, or any of the other of these are just amazing. I also love bolstering support into Wild Growth. There's just so many good opportunities here. I wouldn't recommend too much to go into the summoning path because we want to shine on a cultural roster, and obviously the experienced leader and logistics training are really, really good. And for a warfare build, I also recommend foraging training because of the regeneration aspect. It's really good. When you're a lot on the road and you're weak on support in general, it's a very, very powerful trait. Personal, on the signature skill side, the astral signature skill gives you status penetration. This is a top-notch lower dedication spell for any troop because we thrive upon inflicting statuses so much, and we have only that one astral affinity point out of our cultural trait, so you might pick that up there, or you go for extra critical chance all the way. It's not bad either. The rest of the heroes, you're very free to pick up what you want. I can see pretty much everything working out pretty decently here because everything has its qualities, but seriously, those ritualists shine very, very much due to the thirst for healing in this build. Therefore, Rally of the Leeches is, if you can maintain a couple of free allies, really a good thing, or you can just conquer a city with decent supporters. I don't know, Arcane, High, these cultures would really, really fit well. So, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this build. It's an interesting twist in the Dark Culture play style, and I was shocked how well the Call the Weak ability plays into this Pyro build, mainly because you're so easily at weakening the enemy all the way down to maximum stacks, because you have just, I don't know, 5 to 6 battle mages so quickly on the battlefield, and it just happens. And your frontliners deal tons of damage because you have already from the get-go the capability to boost your damage by 40%. Burning and, well, not entirely at the beginning of the game, but once you have Searing Arrows and Searing Blades together, you can rack up 40% extra damage via Weakening and Burning. This is insane, especially since we are auto to heal ourselves with that. We can also eat corpses, which means we are good against Necromancers. Anybody who wants to resurrect anything, keep an eye on it. If anything you don't want to see ever again, just eat it. Strategies. Alright, I think that's that. I hope you enjoy. Leave a comment down below. Leave wishes or thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Check out the description box. Feel free to support the channel. Many thanks to all of you who do. And of course, thanks a lot for watching these videos. I really appreciate having you folks around. And have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.